Welcome to College Football Roundtable, your source for college football coverage, including major storylines,
playoffs,
can't miss game previews, and picks each week. Join your hosts, Dan, Rob, and Jordan at the Roundtable for a show unlike anything else. As for Football presents the College Football Roundtable.
Welcome back. What's up, everybody? Louisville lays the smackdown on Wake Forest in a turnover-filled contest. K-State demolishes Oklahoma State, and we answer the question of which team has the ugliest alternate uniform of all time. What's up, Trash Talkers? Welcome back to the College Football Roundtable, or if you prefer, Ring Knocker Radio, or this season's theme, 2 O's and an NCO. How's everybody doing? I'm your host, Rob. Got Dano Ikebesa in coastal Connecticut. And 8-0 Trigger Joe from the home of the Bears. How's it going today, guys? And what games did you watch this weekend?
Oh, man, I watched a ton of football. I learned that Tennessee and UConn are good, and Navy and Temple are bad in no particular order. I mean, UConn beat Boston College for the first time in history. Looked like the Eagles were surprised that they were in an actual football game. Papers around here were calling it the unrequited rivalry, but I'll bet it's requited now. And I don't know if you guys watched that Tennessee game. Holy hell. They were running hurry up basically the whole time. And they just caught Kentucky unready on defense multiple times. Caught them with like 16 players on the field. Tennessee was very, very disciplined about how they substituted players. Finally, a Kentucky defender, because they were moving so fast, he just fell down holding his stomach. I thought the guy was gonna vomit. Like he looked like he was gonna hurl. It was like asymmetric football. Instead of subbing, the Vols would move tired players over to the other side of the offense and just run the hurry up. You know, you make these Kentucky defenders who trained to play with speed and power. Suddenly it's aerobic conditioning and VO2 max. Totally amazing. They just dominated, destroyed them.
Yep. And there's two ways to look at that. Is like, okay, did you guys really want to show that before the Georgia game? And there's a caveat to that, which is you want to make sure you can run it before the Georgia game. Absolutely. So, they had a few penalties. I think they probably made the decision like, look, we're tipping our hand, but we got to know we can execute. They picked a pretty good tune-up team. I mean, you tune Kentucky up like that. No one's really picked them like that all season. It was very successful. So who knows, man? When that line came out, Tennessee plus 10, I immediately put $25 on them.
Oh, that's a good bet. I didn't know that was the line. That's a good bet.
8.5. So it's
well, I will tell you straight up, like I've been saying this all season, Hendon Hooker is a grown man. Like that dude
that's the truth.
Is like he's legit. Like he is.
Say that.
Yeah. Well, bottom line is that's one of those guys that like if he like not that he's going to, but if he were to transfer with the skill set that he has, he could start anywhere in college football. And I think that's legit. Joe, what games did you watch other than Michigan State?
Of course, I watched us take the Paul Bunyan Trophy back with it, and just a dictator-like fashion. What a smackdown that was. Watched Tennessee and Kentucky, and what was the game that really? Syracuse and Notre Dame. Man, the kids let me down. I was rolling that train.
Yeah.
And then I was focused on the Illinois game because I really liked them at -7 and the under 50, and it was a 35-point total, and they covered by like 15. So Illinois might just be. I don't know. We'll see. They should give Michigan a good test going into Ohio State because I think there are games before them. So very good defense. And they're only
I really think so. For me, like I said, I'm becoming a low key TCU fan. Like I keep taking the over. I took the spread this week, but like given the way that their defense plays, like. These over-unders at like 65, 70 points are actually realistic because the TCU offense can score 50 easily. So then the opponent only has to contribute about 20, 25. So, and they're having a lot of those 34 to 45 games and that kind of stuff. So I think it's pretty reasonable that the line keeps moving in Vegas for them. But like their quarterback, Duggan, is a stud. That dude is huge. He's big. He's strong. He's not the fastest guy. But when he takes off, he doesn't look like, I think the poster child for a bad running quarterback is Eli or or Peyton Manning, when you see those guys turn the corner, you're just like, oh God, please just stop running so you don't kill yourself, versus, some of these other guys that have a lot more talent and bulk.
Or Josh Allen, who they're afraid to admit it, but those DBs don't want to tackle Josh Allen.
Yeah, that's the truth.
They're a head shorter than him. And
yeah, that's the truth. And he knows it too.
Oh, yeah, he makes it work for him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's a bully. I love it.
Yeah, why slide when you can run through people? I think that's just a tenet that should be in football always. Dan, so let's run down the top 10, and we got some interesting stuff to talk about on this week's show. There's a lot, at least in my opinion, and we'll talk about it when we get to the picks. But there's a lot of surprises this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
This was an anomaly for like a mid-season football game. There were some teams that were not in mid-season form, which is surprising, and so that definitely alludes to, this week being exciting as well, because it's like, who can make the adjustments after taking dude, I think that's the worst I've ever seen McCall look at Wake Forest. He got throttled, and it wasn't just, passing. He was getting hit a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Defense made me look like I knew what I was talking about before they ruined my pick. But I did say they gave some. I've seen them give teams problems, and it's just one of those games that you catch it and it's like, dude, the game sucked me in because they are hitting out there. And it was a Louisville game, and I remember seeing that against Wake Forest, and I was like, God, that over number's high. Now they hit it, but Louisville's defense caused some serious problems on Saturday.
No, it did, for real. All right, so top 10.
So number 1, we've got Georgia. They laid the whooping on Florida. That game looked like it was close for a minute, and then they blew them out, and then Florida caught up again, and then Georgia put the hammer down. So they stay at number 1, no change. Number 2, in a tie, you've got Ohio State and Tennessee. I'd be pissed if this wasn't going to change next week immediately. But anyway, at number 4, we've got Michigan. Defense looks great. Offense, Rob's got in here that they couldn't seem to finish drives. I only kind of kept one eye on that game, to be honest with you. Number 5, Clemson. Clemson very quietly having a very good season. Number 6, Bama. Number 7, TCU. Let me tell you, any of those top 7 teams could reasonably be in the college football playoff right now. Number 8, Oregon feels like an also-ran. Number 9, Southern California, they also feel like an also-ran. And number 10, UCLA. So you got the top 3 teams in the Pac-12 sort of playing for irrelevance. I hate it, but that's what it is. Oklahoma State drops out of the top 10 after being shut out by K-State 48-0. That had to be the most surprising result of the weekend. I was shocked. Rounding out the top 10, talking by conferences. So the SEC has 5. The ACC, my new favorite conference, also has 5. Biggest shift was Wake dropping from 13 to 20 after getting smacked around by Louisville. The Big Ten has 4, with Illinois being the biggest surprise, quietly having a good season. Pac-12 has 5. Oregon State snuck into the top 25 this week. That's a little suspect to me. Big 12 has numbers 7, 9, and 23. Americans got 2. They got Tulane and Central Florida. Both of those are well-deserved. And you've got the Independence Liberty at number 23. And they're also pretty good season. So top 25 losses this week. Penn State, Syracuse, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, Wake Forest, South Carolina shouldn't have ever been ranked, and Kentucky. Which one of these teams took the worst loss? I got to say Wake Forest.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Although, Oklahoma State was also ran, because that was I think that was one of the first unranked matchups that was a shutout in like 10 or 15 years. I saw a graphic. I didn't pay too much attention to it, but that's brutal. Old Pistol Pete took it on the chin. And the scary part of it is like when you watched that game, Martinez was out. So this was the backup quarterback for K-State, and that kid was slinging it all over the place. So they got 2 gunslingers in Kansas. Like, who would have thought in Manhattan that they would have 2 gunslinging quarterbacks, one that can run and one that can sling the rock 40, 50 yards in the air, but the result is still the same. So their offense, what a conundrum to have as an offensive coordinator, 2 completely different style of quarterbacks that can play some great football. Pretty doggone crazy.
When was the last time you saw OK State get shut out?
Yeah.
My goodness, that's kind of scary, Kansas State. Shutting out, not to mention they did whatever they wanted on offense, but the goose egg, no one saw that coming.
Yeah. And that's the kind of loss that'll knock you out of the New Year's 6 discussion. Like, oh yeah, no, they lost 48-0. Like, forget about it. That just knocks you down a whole ranking.
Yeah. Shut out just doesn't even make sense. Like,
you can't score points.
Yeah, that was gross. I don't think anybody anticipated that game. Like I seriously thought it was going to hit the over, and I got screwed on that one because that was what I wanted. But I was like hoping that they can contribute something. All right, so Service Academy football this week. We got Army and Air Force both getting buys, getting ready for the Commanders Classic in Arlington. We're going to hit that one pretty deep on the As for Football Army football show. But I'm going to be on the road, so don't send me any social media stuff because I'm not going to be watching because I'm going to be down at Disney, so I do not want to have any surprises. Navy won on senior night in the ugliest overtime game. Again, they lost their starting quarterback, Ty Lavatai, for the season. He is banged up bad. It was ugly. It looked ugly. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be good. And then it's going to be interesting to see how Xavier Arline does. Like, he does pretty good as a backup, but not as a starter, and that could be bad because they have some seriously horrible O-line issues. But I got to give a quick shout out to the Firsty Club because those guys were quick on the meme game. And like all the memes of Coach Ken's face as he realized that they won, like that just made my night. If Navy has to lose, at least memeing up that gorgeous face of Coach Ken Niamalolo with that look on his face made it worthwhile. I mean, if that's the only small thing that I get out of it. But Dan, you want to really touch on the Commander Chiefs trophy this week?
Yeah, man. Biggest game of the week, or biggest game of the contest potentially is this weekend. I think the game's going to be close. Like I said, we'll talk about this more on the other show, but it was wild. And just to circle back to Navy, so they had a true freshman quarterback, albeit Kurt Warner's son, playing for Temple with a reserve center and 2 reserve guards against the vaunted Navy defense and went to overtime. Yeah. So, yeah, that was.
Yeah, Navy's got some work to do. Bottom line, and I think honestly, I went back and I watched the 2021, and we'll dive this a lot deeper. But I watched 2020 and 2021 Army Air Force. I think the game's going to be more like the 2020 game. You know, just because I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think both of the academies are coming into their own. But speaking of academies, we'll move to the FCS guys. And the Coast Guard Academy is 3-5. They had a second half comeback against MIT. I guess you can make adjustments when you're not doing calculus at halftime. They take on WPI this week. The Bears scored 28 second half points to edge MIT 31-24. Wow. So that's I'm sure that was a great game to watch. Merchant Marine Academy dropped their senior day game to Springfield by a score 27-17. They're on a bye until the Coast Guard game, which is the Secretary's Cup. And we talked about this on the other show or last year, but the Secretary's Cup is the equivalent of the FCS Academy's Army-Navy game. So you've got Coast Guard and Merchant Marines playing. The admission is free, so if you're in Kings Point, go check out the game. It's free. It's also going to be broadcast live on ESPN. So, I mean, if you want to watch the Secretary's Cup in a couple of weeks, I think that would be worth watching. I mean, there's something to be said about FCS football. I mean, I think everybody knows the Bison and, some of the other top teams there and Youngstown State from the late 90s. I mean, those are all great teams. And the cool part about FCS football is they've had the playoff system for years. And so they don't even have a playoff discussion because they just play for whoever's in. Whereas like FBS continues to wrestle with, how does a postseason look? So if you're, if you want to watch some football for football's sake and know a pretty solid, non-interfered bodied playoff system, then FCS is probably the more pure form of the playoff system that you're going to get in college football. But without further ado, let's go to Joe and talk about Joe's Blue Falcon of the week.
All right, here we go. So I'm celebrating the win. We're at a Halloween party, and all of a sudden the phone starts blowing up. People sending me videos. Look at this, man. You see what happened to you? Okay, Michigan State game. Here's the rules. And Colonel Rob played on Saturdays, so he can back me up on this one. You're the host. The other team is your guest. They go in the locker room when the game's over, while you go to the student section or do whatever traditions they've been set in place at your university, then you go in. There's state police standing in that tunnel. Michigan University put food on my plate growing up. I've been in the tunnel. There's always cops there, okay? So, and I don't take shots at police either. I'm just saying, I don't understand this. Why in the world, when Michigan State's wearing all white, do you let a guy wearing maize and blue sneak by him and get in that mix? You're inviting nothing but trouble. So my Blue Falcon of the week is the traffic cop at the University of Michigan Stadium, because that's 2 weeks in a row now. We've had a visitor come in and an altercation in the tunnel. Like, dude, one jersey goes in first, okay, with none of the other jerseys, and then all of them go in. Okay, we just solved the arithmetic there for you. We did the hard work. But having said that, it was a dead heat for first place with the Michigan State Spartans, who, let's be honest, take the football uniforms off them, committed a felony right there on TV. And that is truth.
Yeah.
And there needs to be some accountability. And I'm telling you, I think, honestly, it goes all the way back and even deeper into the transfer portal. Where are we asking, hey, is this crap rolling uphill? Did this guy get booted off every team he's been on? Is this guy part of the culture here? Or did we just go out and get ourselves a bunch of athletes? Because 2 of those guys were transfers.
Nice.
What I'm saying is some players transfer because they can't fit in anywhere else because they have a discipline problem. So if these kids are old enough to buy a beer, which most of them are, old enough to vote, and old enough to fight a war, they're old enough to be tried as adults in court. So let's have a little bit of integrity and accountability in college football, for crying out loud. Michigan State, take your L, do the right thing. Michigan's traffic cop, dude, this has got to be the last warning for you. But next game, I want to see you in a T-shirt that says Blue Falcon, because you certainly are the Blue Falcon of the evening. And that's all I got.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, that one should be easy to get accountability. You've got video and like there's bumpers on the back of them, so you know exactly who the guys are. And then, from a name, image, and likeness perspective, maybe this is something like, hey, God forbid we do that, but start finding players. Like, hey, if they can get NIL money, find that ass, take their money, and then drop it into the scholarship fund. I mean, why not? There's probably some women's soccer player at Michigan State that needs a little bit of financial help. So it can immediately come from the football team, particularly for something like that, because, it's gone beyond the point, and it's just simply boundaries and decorum. At the end of the day, if you win, if you're the visiting team, you want to celebrate on the field with your teammates and the people that traveled. If you're the losing team, you want to get off the field as quickly as possible. I think that's just kind of a standard rule in football. And if you don't kind of honor those traditions, where's the sport going?
I think Harbaugh said that they were working with the state police and they expected charges to be filed. Like you said, it was right on video. I mean, there's no discussion of what the facts are in the case. We all saw it.
Yeah, I mean, you're throwing full-on soccer kicks with football cleats on. Take a guy's eye out. You want to get paid like Josh Allen? What do you think would happen to Josh Allen if he did that in the tunnel? I guarantee his pocket would get a lot lighter.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing. Rob, I think you touched on a great point. You guys want to get paid like pros? Pro.
Yeah, start having pro behavior. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's a whole part of, rookie camp is for them to get in front of the media, make sure that they're polished. And so, like, now, if you're getting paid early, that professionalism needs to start on the day that you get that first NIL check and not when you get into the league. And I think, that type of accountability starting early would, it may change the scope. Like, you're still going to have, the idiots that are going to go out and do dumb stuff, but this at least will give you the opportunity to kind of regulate that. And maybe that is one of the advantages of NIL. Who knows? I mean, I would like to see, just put that kind of effort into the field, man. Like, if you guys would have played that hard on every play, it may have changed the outcome of the contest. And even if it didn't, at least that you put your best effort forward rather than, ended up in some shenanigans. I know that they announced some suspensions. I didn't get the names or anything just yet, but that was one of the first things that came out, like that was on the newswire, that they said they're going to suspend those guys. But look, I think collectively, and I don't want to steal this from Joe, but I think, not only does the traffic guy need to get it, but those players, not only do they need to get the Blue Falcon of the week, but like we talked about last week, like if you lose a game and you get suspended, man, that jeopardizes your career, especially if you're a junior, dude. Like, you're putting yourself in a hurt box for draft status. But speaking of games, let's move on to the games of the week. Gentlemen, guess what? There's football on tonight, if you can believe that. So you got some serious MAC action on tonight. So you got Ball State and Kent State at 7 on ESPNU. You got Buffalo and Ohio on ESPN2 at 7:30. Wednesday. Man, I can't believe I'm saying Tuesday and Wednesday for college football, but I think that's great. There must be you know why it is? there's a lull in the baseball game because it got rained out, so they're going back to the other stadium. So there's an extra day of play that they can put something on television in lieu of the World Series. So you have Central Michigan and NIU playing. That should be a decent contest. Western Michigan at Bowling Green, the old alma mater of everybody's least favorite collegiate coach. Thursday, November 3rd, we've got UTEP at Rice, App State and Coastal Carolina. That one's going to be a good one. So, like, if you have some time, I would definitely sit down and watch that contest because Coastal is kind of, I wouldn't say they're struggling, but they're not looking as good as they did in the early part of the season. And this may be a trap game for them if they're looking past to the next contest, because App State is still pretty tough. Even though their record doesn't show it, App State and Georgia State are basically the same kind of team. They're up and down. And if you get caught slipping, you're going to catch an L from them for sure. You have UMass and UConn. That's going to be a better game than advertised. And I know Dan will be watching that one. That one's on the CBS Sports Network. You got Duke and Boston College. That one's always a weird one. That's a decent basketball game. If you're watching basketball, I don't know how the football contest is going to be. Like
Boston College is terrible. Duke is going to roll them.
Yeah, well, they got to shake the cobwebs off just to score some points after that drubbing that they took this past weekend from UConn, which is still hard to believe. You got number 24.
15.5-point underdogs.
They're 15.5-point underdogs, BC is? Wow.
Oh, UMass to UConn. But
really?
Yeah.
App's 3-point favorites going into Coastal, so I think everybody else thinks it's a trap game for Coastal too. But Coastal's 7-1 getting disrespected, man.
Yeah, they haven't looked. They're not. They listen. Grace McCall is amazing, but the rest of that team is not quite as good as he is. Like, he is the standout best player on that team by a mile.
Yeah, that's his NASCAR deal. But I will tell you, like I said, I was sitting in the stands in the Coastal Carolina game, and the highlight of their year was beating Army, and that's just it's ridiculous because they're trying, because of where they play in the Sun Belt. They have to win those out-of-conference games to give themselves credibility, if that makes any sense. Because, it's kind of like Navy with the churn of their schedule in, the American Conference. Like, hey, look, I can win out on all these games, but if I don't beat those out-of-conference rivals or those out-of-conference teams that really impact my schedule, then I'm not having as good a year as I should. And Navy is a horrible example for me to use in that, but that's the only team that I could think of that's kind of in a similar boat. Moving on to the late game, if you want to stay up for that one and start your day early on Saturday, you've got Oregon State and Washington at 10:30 on Friday night. Early kicks on Saturday, of course. The only game that matters is Army at Air Force in Arlington, Texas at 11:30 on CBS. Please download the Varsity app and listen to Rich DeMarco, because you will be sorely disappointed unless Ross Tucker is calling that game. Because
he is not on the main network. No chance.
Oh, gross. All right, yeah. Well, what I would tell you is it depends. Like, there are some guys that actually watch Army football and understand that there's the difference between a B-back and a fullback. It's not much, but there is. And we'll see. But that's going to be a good contest. That's the earliest kick on Saturday is at 11:30, so that's kind of weird. And so that's 10:30 Central Time in Texas, which is even more weird. It's an odd start time for a football game, but hey, what are you going to do? You got number 19 Tulane at Tulsa playing on ESPNU. You got Ohio State and Northwestern. Dude, Northwestern is trying to steal the Spoilermakers jersey and bump off Ohio State and ruin their game. But I don't know if you watched that Ohio State game. Two things. They have a defensive end that's a sophomore in Ohio State, JTT. That dude, monster. 2 picks, fumble, and a pick 6. Guy's a beast. And again, I will say it, if you're watching pro football, if you have a rookie favorite wide receiver, he probably came from Ohio State. And Dan even texted me, was like, dude, I'm watching Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh my God. That was the first time I've seen him play this season. Oh my God. He's just like, that dude is legit. Like, he is legit. He is so good.
Yeah. Like I remember one game he came out with like some Louis Vuitton cleats on and they made him change him. Cause I guess like he got it from one of his NIL sponsors and he was rocking these things and he was looking all as the kids say, dripped out, and he changed him out at the halftime because I guess they got on his case. Anyway, you got North Carolina and Virginia playing on the ACC network. There's some other also ran games. So you got Minnesota and Nebraska, Texas Tech and TCU. I think that'll be a good one. That one's kicking at noon. You've got Kentucky and Missouri. Those guys are licking their wounds, trying to get their season back together. Afternoon kicks. You've got USF at Temple, that's going to be a drubbing. You've got Marshall at Old Dominion. That one might be a good game because, again, ODU is one of those teams that's up and down this season, but they're playing pretty well. And I think one of the things I will say is I think Georgia State and Old Dominion are playing to the level of their competition, and that's why they keep getting smoked. You know what I mean? So, like, when they have a tough team, they play up. When they have a team that's kind of they should beat, but they don't, I think that's because they're actually playing to the level of their competition. I don't know how you prep your players for that, but I think that's part of the psychology going into those games. You got Georgia State and Southern Miss, Baylor at Oklahoma. This usually is a ranked matchup, not this year, which is crazy. UCF at Memphis at 3:30 on ESPN2. Syracuse and Pitt. Pitt's again, that's one of those teams playing to the level of their competition. I think Syracuse, if they come out, will probably play a much tougher game. Like, I don't think anybody expect them to get slapped around by Notre Dame the way that they did. I think that one's going to be an interesting game. You've got Oklahoma and Kansas, and then, the mother of all afternoon football games, which I still can't believe this is not a prime time spot, is Tennessee and Georgia. I thought that would be like the 8:00 game, but that one's going to be berserk. Because I don't know if Tennessee's defense can shut down those two massive tight ends that Georgia has. Like, both of those dudes are.
Spoiler alert, they probably can't.
Yeah,
although their defense has not been bad, but they got to win on offense. That's my opinion.
Yeah, those two dudes are grown men. This one's going to be, I don't even know what the over is, but take it. Because I know that both of these offenses are either it's going to be an offensive explosion or nobody's going to score any points because they're going to be calling the game cautiously to just, control the clock and keep the other quarterback off the field. Because if that's the game plan. If you're Georgia, you don't want Hendon Hooker on the field. And if you're Tennessee, you definitely don't want Stetson Bennett and all those weapons that he has on the field at the same time. You've got Oregon taking on Colorado. That would be an upset that I would love to see. I'd love to see Oregon start looking past Colorado and get caught in a trap, but I don't believe that is ever going to happen because Oregon is on point this season. And, I will tip the cap to those guys because normally they usually drop one a little bit later in the year. They drop, one to the previous year's national champion, and they have played like they should have been, in the playoff last year. Liberty at Arkansas, number 23. Let's see if they can hold on to that top 25 ranking or move up. Navy's got Cincinnati. That's a recipe for disaster, man, because Cincinnati is coming off of a loss. Navy's coming off of a overtime win with an injured quarterback, and their line's not playing well. If I'm Luke Fickell, I am if I can hang 100 on these dudes, I'm going to put 100 on them because I've got to get some respect back and at least get into the number 25 slot. So I'm in at least a halfway decent postseason discussion. Because if not, Cincinnati's pretty much done after that. Let's see. Troy and Louisiana, that's a future Army opponent playing at 5:00. And then we go to the primetime games. You got Clemson at Notre Dame. That one's actually interesting seeing the performance that Notre Dame put on this past week. Can they rise to the occasion a second time and keep it close? I think Clemson's the better team, but we'll see. Got Alabama at LSU. That one can go either way. Texas at K-State. That one's going to be a good one. I think that's going to be quarterback city. Like, if you like quarterback play, I think this is going to be the game to watch because you got, a guy that's playing. He's, both of these quarterbacks got their back against the wall. Either the starter's going to come in or Arch Manning's going to take your job next year if you're Quinn Ewers. So, you got to tighten up that mullet and throw some touchdown passes. But moving on, like this one will be big over here. You've got Wake Forest and NC State at 8:00 on the ACC network. Michigan is playing Rutgers. That should be a beatdown. Rutgers is quietly playing okay, but the way that Michigan's defense is playing this year, I just don't think they'll have anything for them. And if you are out at the bar drinking late, you can stay up and watch UCLA at Arizona State. You've got Hawaii and Fresno, and then you've got Cal taking on USC. It's a lot of talking. What are your games of the week, gentlemen?
I've got two, and they're both on CBS. You start with Army Air Force, and then you roll into Tennessee at Georgia. I mean, I'm home this weekend for the second time this season, so we'll have the full 3 television set up, going wide. But I very much doubt we'll be watching anything besides those 2 big games.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going Tennessee and Georgia. I'm going to check out the Army game because Michigan's playing at night, so I'll be watching the Army game early. Michigan's playing another night game, which I don't know why they're playing another night game in Rutgers. But definitely Georgia and Tennessee, and I am going to be watching Texas and Kansas State and peeking in at Clemson and Notre Dame.
Yeah. So for me, I'm well in between other stuff. I'll be checking out Oklahoma State and the K-State game. I think that, or I'm sorry, I see if Oklahoma State can bounce back. I want to see freaking Cincinnati crush Navy. I mean, that one's a no-brainer. If they don't score 100 on them, I'll be disappointed. And then I think Tennessee and Georgia, again, this is the contest. Like all these games with these top 5 ranked teams or top 7 ranked teams, those are all going to determine who's going to be the number 1 seed for the playoff. Whoever can keep their record intact the most is going to be the guy that ends up in the driver's seat going into the postseason. Let's pick some games, guys. Dan, what you got?
I went 2-1 last week. Temple at Navy hit because they went to overtime, which was really, really annoying. I took Cincy plus 1.5 at UCF. That obviously missed. And Coastal plus 2 at Marshall hit. Coastal won pretty handily. So this week I've got Army and Air Force under 47.5. Have no idea who thinks these two teams are going to put 47.5 points. Like no chance. Tulane minus 7.5 at Tulsa. I mean, the Green Wave, they usually do for a late season swoon, but I don't think it's going to be against Tulsa. And Georgia State at Southern Miss over 50.5. Really want to pick State on the money line, but I don't know. I was looking at it. The statistics don't really favor it, but I am a believer that Georgia State's going to make a bowl game.
Yeah, I think they will. All right, so I went 1-2 last week, and that's just due to teams not playing up to their expectations. So I hit on TCU again. Like I'm going to ride that heater until it breaks. Then Wake took a huge loss. It looked like they were playing a Pop. They looked like a Pop Warner team playing their first scrimmage against Louisville. It was like they were shocked. They were surprised. Like, oh, like you're supposed to get hit in the face in a football game. I didn't realize this. And I was sorely disappointed that Oklahoma State didn't get on the board, because if they would have scored anything, if they would have scored 2 touchdowns, they would have went over, and they just got blanked. And again, embarrassment of riches at K-State, having 2 tremendous quarterbacks, one that can run and throw, and then one that can just throw. Like they're in the driver's seat for at least their division in the Big 12. This week I'm calling the long shot. TCU and Texas Tech to hit over 71. I don't like the spread at 10.5 because TCU just can't cover close spreads like that. I mean, if it was under 10, I would have probably taken the spread, but they're 90th ranked in defense, but somehow they just keep winning, and they just keep hanging, 70 points a game between the two teams. Take Illinois to cover 16.5 against Michigan State. Straight up, like Michigan State's garbage, man. Like the sooner they realize it, the sooner they can start playing for number 1 draft picks. Like I have no idea, because that team is awful, and discipline problems are a sign of a bad team. Back to the previous discussion, and then take the 54.5. Take the over on that. K-State and Texas. I think no matter what quarterback starts for K-State, their offense is explosive. I think if Quinn Ewers has a good game, like they're easily going to score 70 in this one. I mean, and Quinn Ewers knows he's playing for his starting spot. And the other piece of it is, like, again, embarrassment of riches. Like if I'm Texas, all I have to do is have a respectable season, go 6-6, get into a bowl game, and then I've got Arch Manning, and then I have 2 super talented quarterbacks to play ball next year. So, not to say that any team openly wants to talk about rebuilding, but if I'm Texas, like if I'm 10-2 going into a postseason bowl, I'm pretty happy knowing that I've got Arch Manning and I've got a proven starter in Quinn Ewers going into next season. Joe, what about you?
Went 2-2 last week. I had a couple of games that didn't go my way, but hit on Illinois at Nebraska minus 7.5. I actually parlayed that before the game. Took the under 50.5, and there was only 35 total points scored. And knew that 15.5 Penn State was getting at home was going to come back and make this game a 2-score game. They always play Ohio State above their head. So hit on those, missed on UCF and Cincinnati under or over, and then missed on Wake and Louisville under. So this week I have got, dude, I'm rolling with it. Nobody else is gonna call it this week. I guarantee you, there's a lot of people thinking it. I'm taking Tennessee in the points. I think I think they keep it within a score. And I think that their Achilles heel is the fact that they give up 300 passing yards a game. That's a high number to give Stetson Bennett. And Hendon Hooker, it doesn't really matter if your defense is giving up 7 yards a game. He'll get 275 on you. So I think that game's going to be really close. I'm a huge Hendon Hooker fan. I'm a believer in that kid. And Stetson Bennett's had a game or two, i.e. Missouri, where he looked like a deer in the headlights. So I'm going to take Tennessee to hang close. Last time I did that, they beat Alabama outright. And Dano, if you remember about a month ago, I said, we'll find out. Tennessee comes out of this with 1 loss. They're for real. Which we already know they're for real, but now we're about to find out if they're the best team in the country. And I think they very well may be. And them and Ohio State are the 2 best teams in the country.
Considering that it was total chaos for them in the offseason, this is astonishing. Legit astonishing.
Yep. And then K-State is getting 2.5 points after blanking the team that just beat Texas. Okay. Texas just lost to Oklahoma State. Got a bye week. K-State blanks them and hangs a 40 on them, and they're home dogs to Texas. So I'm taking K-State plus 2.5 at home. I'm also taking UCF, who is very quietly playing some serious offense. Minus 3.5 at Memphis. Memphis defense won't be ready for that. And then I'm taking the Illini Michigan State game to go under 42. Illinois' defense is averaging 8.9 points a game. That's better than Michigan's. And Michigan held this Michigan State team to 7 points. And I will say this, that was not indicative of how dominant we were on defense. Their offense is brutal. I love taking the Illini. I just don't like going over 14 on the spread because Michigan State can make games ugly. If you made me bet the point spread, I'm taking Illinois and the points. But I like the under here. I like Illinois to win this game 28-10. And I say that's being generous with how many points Michigan State will score. So there's my games. I got Tennessee plus 8.5, K-State plus 8.5, UCF minus 3.5, and I like the Illinois game, Michigan State game to go under 42.
Yeah, it was actually a good call.
I like Clemson to cover against Notre Dame, but I'm not going to get crazy because Notre Dame looked like they might have been. Notre Dame looks like somebody might have kicked a sleeping giant, and who knows, Clemson might pull a Clemson. I mean, it was called a Clemson for a reason, so I'm not going to take them as 4-point road favorites after Notre Dame looks like they might have just woke up and realized the football season is actually going on.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, again, I think the only reason why they're throwing shade, Vegas is throwing shade on K-State is because they don't know who their starter is going to be. Because Martinez is out, and they're like, okay, well, can a guy come in as a backup, score that many points once? Can he do it again? And I think that's probably the reason why. But like, if you watch that game, you're like, dude, they've got a running game too. So going back to last week's discussion and last week's topic, like their running back was Deuce's name. That kid's got some skills, man. Like, so they have a decent running game to help take the pressure off of their quarterback, whoever it is, So I think that one's just, I think that's a bad call from Vegas, but hey, whatever. We'll see what happens. And then, of course, so we threw this out to the Twitterverse and the Firsty Club and said, hey, like, what topics do you want us to cover over the next couple of weeks? And, like, of course, some of the topics that we put out there were ugliest uniform in college football, biggest rivalry, teams that put most players in the pros, biggest scandals. And, on Twitter, it was basically even 31% even, and then we had like one outlier, which was a guy that abstained from voting, and I don't know how you abstain from voting on a Twitter poll, but the one that really rose to the top was the ugliest uniform. So the first thing that I will say is, like, there are some teams that have some super ridiculous alternate uniforms, and that all is tied to the contract that they have with their respective sponsors. So if you have Under Armour, Nike, or Adidas, those three companies are constantly in the battle to create a new and unique uniform. Now, thank God for the service academies that they kind of think about, like, the lineage and the history and everything else that kind of goes into it. So when you look at the alternate uniforms for the Army Navy game, those are usually pretty solid. And there's some uniforms that are much, much harder to come by than others. So, for example, the 82nd jersey, like, you're going to pay out the nose to find a used one of those, because that was like a baller jersey years ago. Even the 1ID one, you can't even find the 1ID jersey, which is rare, because I'm not sure why anybody would want that one because I served in that organization and I'm not a fan. But when you look at those special uniforms, like all these teams differently have one. I think the consensus, without even doing any research at all, Oregon wins hands down the ugliest uniforms in college football on a week-to-week basis. Like there's no discussion on that. However, if you do a little bit of research, and I did, and I pulled up some of the photos, and we'll flash them up here on the screen. But good Lord, the cancer awareness uniforms that Oregon pulled out. So you've got your standard duck emblazoned logos on the wings or whatever in the helmets, and then the numbers are pink. And it would be different. Like not to throw shade on cancer survivors, because cancer is a horrible, horrible thing, and we don't want that. And I understand why every October we do this. That's not the point. It's the aesthetic of the uniform. Like nobody wants to have basically Kim Light juice dumped all over their jerseys, because that's what it looks like. There's like speckles on the shoulder, or they got hot pink letters. And of course, the photo that I have of the alternate and the home jersey, it's basically the same. It's ugly. It's got those stupid wings on it. I hate it. I'm not an Oregon fan. I think that is the worst uniform in college football. Just
that
terrible.
looks like something my daughters would have come up with, and we're like 3 and 5, like, oh, Dad, we designed a football uniform. Look at this.
Yeah, this is like
Daffy Duck uniform finished second. Why didn't you guys go with that one? Like, let's just make it a Looney Tunes. Or the Florida Gator skin. That's got to be number one for me. Holy hell.
We're getting there. We're getting there, because like these are bad, man. So I pulled this from an article, and this is actually from the Lansing Journal. So the Michigan State alternate uniforms. There's something about Nike and the Dayglow uniforms that are just irritating. But the quote from the Lansing Journal is, "Hopefully we play better than the jerseys are." That's what the Michigan State fans said about their alternate jersey. Horrible, horrible color. It's got a giant emblazoned, state on it in freaking, I won't even call it lime green. It's like puke green. Yeah. And then like the funky puke green pants. And I think the only cool thing on it is if you dig the Spartan helmet, that's like the only thing that's like remotely salvageable about that uniform is the Spartan helmet. It hurts my soul just to look at it. It's ugly. And shame on you, Big Ten, for allowing these guys to bring that uniform out. Shame on you.
Big Ten sitting here going, hey, man, we let Maryland in, which means we have to let everybody in. Have you seen for crying out loud? Those should be illegal.
Yeah, the Maryland uniform. But again, at least the Maryland uniform has some tie to the lineage, right? The Maryland flag has the split logo, and it's got the coat of arms. So at least it's like, I know where that comes from. You know what I mean? Like Michigan State, throw it like there is no lime green on the flag of Michigan. Sorry. It's like not even close. The next one is the Florida Gator High jerseys. Now, the only thing that looked cool is the helmet. Like I like the dark helmet aesthetic sometimes, but it also depends on the rest of the uniform. But these dudes straight up put like orange letters on it with like, I don't even know how to, is that?
Yeah. The green with the dark green with the blue with the dark blue with the orange, like 3 design elements. Just if we're wondering, 3 is the number of design elements or fewer.
Yeah.
Well, that was the gator skin one, right?
Yeah. The gator skin one, again, like
it was putrid. It looked like a gator skin smells.
That's probably accurate. Like that one's a horrible one, man. I feel bad. And then of course I did some other research and pulled up an article. There's a great one. We'll put the link in the description of the top 25 horrible and there's pictures. So I'm telling you now, like if you don't want to throw up, do not look at this website after you eat, because it's going to be a rough one. So
one of those alternates that look like off of Any Given Sunday.
Yes, they did.
They played on Any Given Sunday. They had like the big cross in the middle, and Maryland had one like that where they split the flag on the top of the jersey. And I'm like, my head hurts. Like, ow.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, man. And so if you have not seen the Southern Miss alternate uniforms, please check that one out. Like
the
legitimately,
Digicam.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Legitimately, like if you were a fan of Team 3D or the Dudley Boys, depending upon how old you are, right? It basically looks like those pants that the Dudley Boys wore and like cut off sleeves on their jerseys. And then the photo that I found like looks like there's this dude and he's like fist bumping his other teammate, and he looks like less than enthused. Like his face is like, man, you guys got me wearing this crap. You know, it's like I'm on scholarship. I kind of
that's a boo-boo lip.
Yeah, he's like, look, man, he's like, I'm barely trying to get a walk-on scholarship. I can't afford to buy another jersey, so this is the one that I get for playing on this team this season. Like, I have to walk around campus with this thing. It's horrible.
I have to show my kids this later on in life.
Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna put this under glass and cry as I drink my whiskey every Friday night. The one that I was super surprised about was the Princeton jersey. So the Princeton jersey is a knockoff of the Cincinnati Bengals and the Michigan uniform. So it's got like the Michigan Wolverine logo on the helmet, and then it's got like the Cincinnati Bengals striped jersey on the side.
Princeton Tigers, right? I'm not crazy, right? Princeton Tigers.
No,
right.
It's the Princeton Tigers, and it literally, I thought this was their alternate uniform, but that's actually like their primary home uniform. And
oh like, man,
dude.
Oh man,
bro, I hope your education is better than your uniform, because that thing is trash.
Here's the kicker on that one. Okay, when you want to do a winged helmet, you can't. We've all played against a winged helmet in high school. Yeah. Teams swap the colors up. The dark color has to be the helmet. The light color has to be the wings. On the front, it looks like they're wearing. It looks like Don Beebe with the protection helmet up front. You just concussed last week. What is that, like orthopedic?
Yeah, like I think they wish it was orthopedic, because that thing is bad. It's rough. I mean, it is rough. And of course, like the first thing that I thought of like was combining two things that don't fit together. So it's like Napoleon Dynamite's Liger, you know. So you've got the lion head and the tiger's body. It's a Liger. Like that's the only thing I can. Skills and magic. Yeah. So like super like, wow, that thing is redonkulous. But last but not least, you know, everybody talks about fashion and how uniforms have evolved over the course of football. So if you watch football in the 80s and 90s, it was all about having big shoulder pads, big neck roll, looking huge, adding like 40 pounds to your silhouette based off all the padding that you had on. Fast forward to today, we want the jerseys, you know, ergonomically fitting. They're tighter, they're smaller, you know, like literally you're looking for knee pads and wide receivers because they're taking everything out so they can just be more athletic in the contest. It's less about the collision and more about the athleticism. Well, when you look at the Iowa State alternate jerseys, I mean, I hear that vertical stripes are slimming, but I don't know if that's the correct look for a college football team. So like literally, if you look at it, it's got the gold pants that they normally kind of wear, but the jersey, I think it's supposed to be the skyline of Iowa. I'm not really sure.
The skyline of Iowa. That's like the flattest place on earth.
Exactly. That's why I don't know what it is. That's why I have no idea what it is. It's like it's horrible. It makes me want to cry. But yeah, so like these are just a small sample of the ugly uniforms out there, and I will apologize up front if you are a fan of these teams and you actually like the alternate unis. However, if you are a veteran listening to this podcast, you may want to make an appointment to go check your head for TBI, because there's no way that you can say that I like this jersey and be all correct up there. Because
Tommy Boy, right?
Yes.
Gets out and says, "Oh my God!" You guys in the corner puking his guts. I'm looking at him right now. This is incredible.
Yeah, there's.
Why are they making you wear that?
Yeah, like these things are pretty ridiculous. But again, hey, look, it's week 10. College football is in full swing. Like if you are not watching college football, you're missing out. And there's games that kick off in like less than 2 hours. So if you have nothing else to do, there's some serious MAC action tonight going on. You should really check those games out. And again, if you're not a fan of a team, watch one long enough and you will become one. And I think that's the best part about college football is like you can grow your passion for the sport just by participating, because it's one of those things like, hey, you don't like rugby, watch a rugby game. You'll probably start to pick some things up and you'll enjoy it. You don't like baseball, go watch it live, because I think it's very, very boring on television. I am not a fan of TV baseball, but I'll go watch a game live. I think there's just a difference about the fan experience by being physically in the stadium. But all in all, great week of football coming up. You got Army, Air Force. You've got the mother of all SEC football games. I think people are talking more about Georgia, Tennessee this year than Georgia, Alabama 2 years ago when they were facing off and they were both undefeated. And then Kirby got his one over on Nick Saban. But
think about it like this, Rob, and I'll shut up, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but Tennessee's stadium seats like 106,000. Georgia's stadium seats like 106,000. Those are massive, massive fan bases. So you're talking literally millions and millions of people deeply invested in this game. Yeah, of course, it's a national phenomenon. Like college football is great because it's a healthy expression of tribalism. It's like, I went to this school and these are my people. And that's good. That's like how often can we say that that's actually good for everybody?
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it's really like if you watch the football contest for the love of the game, like you can have a good time even sitting on the opposing team's side of the field, because again, they're there for the same reason you are, to watch their team win. And there's got to be some mutual ground that you meet. And that's one of the difficult things of watching games live, because 70%, 80, probably 90% of the people go there to enjoy the game. And then there's the 10% that, go to the tailgates, and then the 5% that tailgate too hard. And those guys ruin it for everyone, and
been guilty before.
Yeah. But again, it's all about really the love of the sport, man. And I still think to this day that college football is the purest form of football, short of watching Pop Warner teams play, like junior high, junior high, freshman, sophomore, high school, JV guys, because they're still like learning the game, but they have enough skill to make it exciting. And so I think that's really the difference, because like I gave up on pro football a couple of years ago. One, because I'm a Raiders fan. I barely even knew that they moved to Vegas, and that's because it's been a trail of tears. If you watch the Silver and Black, the Raiders have not been cool for a very, very long time. And the last time they had a great opportunity, Chucky jumped ship, went to Tampa Bay, and then told them not to fall for the pump fake. And that's how they won the game, that Super Bowl in Tampa Bay all those years ago. But from a college football perspective, the best part of it is the constant turnover of players every 4 years. You're not going to have a guy that's going to, get slapped with a franchise tag and stay there forever. So I think there's some goodness to that. But I can appreciate all the support that we're getting. Joe, we really appreciate you coming on. We stole you from the Veteran Trash Talk Nation, and your contribution is huge.
I didn't put up to a fight, did I? Did I get to talk about football with a bunch of people that won't tell me to shut up? Tell me one.
Yeah, and seriously, like, again, and I'll caveat this and then we'll end the show, but like if you don't have the cash to bet, or your state doesn't allow it, do not bet, because you can get yourself in trouble. And again, we are giving these suggestions for fun, but if you are a serious player, it was serious money. Just be cautious of what you do, and always keep some money stuffed underneath your mattress or something in case of emergency, because you don't want to blow your life savings gambling away on the spread of college football, because as last week we all found out, it was a lot more unpredictable than we thought. Statistics don't matter every week. And again, we appreciate you guys coming out. So for Ring Knocker Radio, or two O's and an NCO, I always screw up something in the.
There's only one Joe.
Yeah, I always screw something up on the leaving the show, but we really appreciate you guys checking us out. So we got Trigger Joe in the land of the big house. We got Dano E. Cabeza coming out of coastal Connecticut, and Rob in Vietnam. Hey, we thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Beat Air Force.
Beat them. Thanks for listening to the Ask for Football College Football Roundtable. Tune in next week as the AFF team brings you more hot takes and college football analysis. We'd like to thank our sponsor, BuyerBarn.com. BuyerBarn.com is the world's first platform to perform online auctions and sales for farm animals. BuyerBarn.com is dedicated to helping small farmers in America and are extending a special discount to military veterans who want to help in the revolution of the family farm. Go to BuyerBarn.com/military. That's BuyerBarn.com, BYREBARN.com to learn more and to get started, or email them at info@BuyerBarn.com. Thanks again for listening to Ask for Football College Football Roundtable, and as always, beat Navy.